The dawn was still gentle, casting pale, golden streaks upon the water of the Luangwa River in Zambia. But for the Mwizi pride of lions, that serenity was just a thin veil covering the lurking dangers. This was a large, powerful pride, consisting of 8 adult lions, but the future of the entire pride lay solely in the life of one fragile cub, a little lion named Keto. This morning, their mission was to overcome a seemingly simple but challenging task, climbing the high, slippery bank of the river. For Layla, the experienced mother lion, it was merely an exercise in strength and agility. But for tiny Keto, every step was a battle. As the pride exerted themselves to climb the bank, tragedy struck. Keto, with his weak legs and lack of skill, slipped on the cracked, damp clay. The cub slid down, unable to stop, and finally became trapped on a small, precarious ledge right next to the deep, black water. The stillness of the morning shattered. Layla whipped around, a raw, burning roar of anxiety tearing through the air. It contrasted sharply with Keto's high-pitched, frightened wails, a sound of desperation echoing beneath the steep cliff face. The Mwizi pride's only hope for survival was being held by a tiny piece of clay in a mother's extreme distress. Trapped on the narrow ledge, Keto clawed desperately. The cold, wet clay slid from his tiny claws, and every attempt to climb only exhausted the cub further and pushed him closer to the abyss. Keto no longer wailed. He whimpered, gasping for breath, his whole body trembling as he realized he was utterly alone, facing danger. Between the sheer bank and the dark water, Keto understood he was separated from the safety of his mother and the pride. On the high bank, Layla was frantic in her helplessness. She paced back and forth along the cliff's edge, her growls fierce, agonizing, as if ripping her guts out. She lowered her head as far as she could, trying to reach out, but the height and the slipperiness of the bank prevented her from reaching her cub. Though she was one of Africa's most formidable predators, facing this boundary between life and death, Layla was just a desperate mother. She knew that a reckless jump would only result in her being trapped, or worse, becoming a victim, ending the Mwizi pride's only hope. The other pride members also gathered, forming a silent circle of anxiety. Their eyes were fixed on Keto, sharing the same primal fear as Layla. Their collective strength was completely useless against gravity and erosion. And then, the real threat emerged from beneath the water surface. At first, it was just a faint ripple, a subtle shift that only seasoned predators like Layla could detect. Then, it appeared, a flattened head, ancient, scaly skin, slowly rising from the water. It was the old hunter, a colossal, expert Nile crocodile. Its cold, yellow eyes did not blink, locked on a Keto, the easy, inescapable prey, trapped right at the water's edge. The old hunter moved slowly, almost silently. It did not need to hurry. Time was on its side. Layla let out a terrifying warning shriek, a sound filled with both fury and plea, but the crocodile responded only with deadly silence. The distance between Keto and the jaws shortened rapidly. The unequal battle for survival had begun, and all the lions could do was stand on the bank, watching their only cub face death from the depths below. The old hunter was close, just a few strokes away from Keto. Under the increasingly intense sunlight, its scales glistened like steel, creating a gruesome image on the quiet water. Keto was now completely paralyzed with fear. His cries faded, replaced by suffocating wheezes. The cub tried to retreat, pressing himself against the clay bank, but the sheer slope itself became a wall of hopelessness, offering him no foothold. The crocodile's patience was over. It dipped its body slightly beneath the water, gathering momentum. This was a calculated, deadly performance. On the bank, Layla roared so furiously that her throat felt like it would bleed. She paced frantically along every meter of the cliff edge, searching for even a single point of attachment. She tried reaching out one more time, attempting to touch her cub, but the distance was still too great and too dangerous. Layla knew well the crocodile's powerful bite and terrifying speed underwater. An ill-considered jump would only lead to disaster. She had fought elephants, confronted hyenas, but never had she felt so helpless. Her strength, the ultimate weapon of a predator, was completely useless against the separation of the terrain and the stealth of another hunter. She could only watch her only cub sliding into the circle of death. Layla's helplessness turned into a desperate roar, a sound signaling the most painful surrender. After a terrifying moment of silence, the old hunter suddenly accelerated. Water splashed. It opened its massive jaws, the sharp teeth waiting to clamp down. The crocodile lunged, its huge body rising out of the water. Everything happened in a flash, too fast to react. Keto shut his eyes tight. The moment of fate had arrived. Layla, with eyes burning with despair, could only reach out her claws in the air in vain. This horrific scene would haunt her for the rest of her life. The impending sound of impact, the mother's powerlessness, and the imminent death. It seemed no miracle could intervene in the harsh laws of nature. Keto's fate was sealed. Just as the crocodile's jaws were about to close, a seismic event occurred. The water, which had been churning from the crocodile's attack, suddenly surged even more violently, as if a volcano had erupted beneath it. It wasn't the crocodile, but a huge, dark block of muscle that abruptly surfaced. Pinda, a massive male hippopotamus, suddenly appeared, letting out an earth-shattering roar of fury. The crocodile had made a fatal mistake. It was hunting too close to Pinda's territory. This was not an act of rescue, but a furious and brutal defense of territory. Pinda charged straight at the crocodile. Hippos are one of Africa's most aggressive species, and its rage was uncontainable. The two giants of the river plunged into a fierce melee. The Luangwa River turned into a white, swirling pool, with mud and water splashing into the air. The crocodile, though powerful, was bewildered and turned to defend itself against a larger and more aggressive enemy. This chaos created a small but crucially significant miracle for Keto. The brutal clash between Pinda and the crocodile created a powerful wave that washed against the bank. This wave, an unintentional act, pushed the cub slightly closer to the bank, just a hand's breadth, but it was enough. On the bank, Layla, who had been frozen in despair, realized this was the only chance. Her long-suppressed maternal instinct exploded. She was no longer a hunting lion. She was a lifeline. Layla crouched low, stretching her body to the maximum, all her strength concentrated in her hind legs gripping the slippery earth. She lowered her head and gently clamped on Akito's scruff. Layla could not afford to err. A pull too strong would injure the cub, while too light would lose him. With a mother's astonishing precision, she applied a gentle but firm grip on Keto's soft flesh. And then, with a strained roar, not of anger, but of sheer effort, Layla used her entire body to haul Keto up. The cub surfaced from the water, from the chaos, and from the jaws of death. Layla pulled Keto up the high cliff, placing him safely on the dry bank, where the other Pride members were waiting in breathless relief. Life had won. On the high bank, Keto lay curled up, exhausted but safe. The cub's entire body was soaked, trembling not from cold, but from the release of extreme fear. Layla immediately switched from fight mode to caregiving. She lay down, lovingly licking Keto with her rough tongue, washing the mud and terror from the small coat. Every lick was an affirmation of life, a promise that the nightmare was over. In her immense relief, Layla let out deep, soft purrs, the sound of safety and intense maternal love. Keto nudged his head into his mother's neck, seeking the warmth and peace that had been stolen in that moment. The Mwizi Pride was now completely relaxed, their anxiety dissolving, replaced by quiet contentment. They looked down at the Luangwa River below. The melee had ended. The old hunter had retreated, and Pinda was still busy stirring the water, letting out one final warning bellow. Layla looked down at the hippo, her cub's unwilling rescuer. There was no language for communication, no ritual to express gratitude. But in the mother lion's long, steady gaze, there was a profound understanding. Keto had been saved not by the intervention of his own kind, but by the random intersection of natural laws. It was a silent, primal gratitude for the one who had unintentionally protected their most precious life. The sun was high, casting warmth upon the returned serenity. It was time to go. Layla gently nudged Keto, reminding the cub that the journey continued. With the pride, she turned her back on the river, carrying Keto, their sole hope, in a strange tale of unwelcome protection from a grumpy hippo. This terrifying adventure was a reminder that in the harshness of nature, life can still hold on thanks to the most unexpected elements. Keto's life, the pride's only life, was saved by pure territorial fury. The journey continues, and Keto will grow up, carrying the story of the perilous dawn on the Luangwa River, and the lesson that sometimes the greatest savior comes from where we least expect it. Wilderness is a constant chain of challenges, courage, and unexpected wonders. If the story of Keto's dramatic survival and Layla's boundless love has touched your heart, don't miss our upcoming journeys. Click the subscribe button now and turn on notifications to join us in discovering the emotional moments, the marvelous connections, and the subtle solutions that the natural world provides. Your support is the strength that allows us to continue telling these amazing stories.